So usually on very special episodes of things, they say previously on Murder She Wrote, previously on the Donut Bag. Um, Back to the beginning of the season or before the season, we said that Omar Khan did a pretty good job. The draft was good. He got Patrick Queen. He got Deshaun Elliott. Traded for Dante Jackson. He turned out of like almost all these new people turned out okay, but there's one thing he screwed up on, and that is the wide receivers. You basically had Pickens, and you got rid of Deontay Johnson, and you had Pickens and a bunch of crap. And everybody said the same thing. Well, okay, but what happens if Pickens gets hurt? Well, now Pickens is hurt. And now we found out what happens when Pickens gets hurt. And it ain't good.
Yeah, it's tough with the Deontay Johnson thing because just what now it's 2 weeks ago, he refused to go in on a play for the Carolina Panthers.
Ugh.
So I have no problem that he's gone. But whatever the backup plan was, plan B, the contingency plan, whatever it was, didn't work. So I guess I would agree with you to a point that he screwed up, but he got rid of a cancer in the locker room. Now that cancer is growing in Carolina, right? So yeah, that's the only thing. But you're right, Joe, to a point for sure that you really handcuff yourself when you don't have Pickens. And you also see just how good Pickens is and what a difference maker he is when he's on the field, despite his immaturity, his athletics behavior, and his ridiculous penalties he's caused us. But it's a big problem. So, one of the things that we talked about last week, or actually on Twitter this week, was Pat Firemuth would have to step up. He did. Had a decent game. Najee Harris had a fairly decent game. Jalen Warren had a good game. So the other guys had to step up, and you also had Calvin Austin coming off of a concussion. So you knew he wasn't going to be great. So you needed guys like Scotty Miller and Mike Williams and Van Jefferson. So this ragtag group of receivers, talk about, Christmas time and the island of misfit toys. I mean, that should be what our receiving corps is called right now when Pickens isn't in there, is the island of misfit receivers, because that's what they
Yeah.
are. If it wasn't the Browns, who knows? The Browns stink, and they're 3-10. So adios. See you guys next year. Enjoy picking up in the draft like you always have to. And we're sitting at 10-3 though, still, Joe. So they're finding a way to win. I guess that's the part that concerns me is people are now putting us in now. Like Tony Romo said a couple times during the game, if you watch from television, that their Steelers are a Super Bowl contender. And I'm sitting there thinking, I just don't see us getting past the Bills or the Chiefs in the playoffs. With the
Right.
receiving core we do. If we don't have Pickens, we're not. I just don't. I maybe we could. I don't. I just don't see it, Joe.
So let's talk about Pickens. I believe on Saturday, maybe Friday, it was revealed that he was added to the injury report and that he was questionable. And then basically right before game time when they were going to announce the inactives, that's when they said, because they said he was going to come out and try it out, and then they're going to make a decision, and they made a decision to bench him and or to to make him inactive. The rumor mills and the conspiracy theorists were
Yep.
working overtime today, saying, "Oh, that was a suspension. He's not hurt. That's a suspension. He's not. They're punishing him. Ha ha ha." And most most reputable people saying, no, that's not the case. He actually is hurt. Actually, Jerry Dulac is saying that he's probably going to be out next week. Also, it's a grade 2 hamstring strain, whatever the heck that means. So, not that we had any chance against the Eagles anyway, but no Pickens 2 weeks in a row is basically
Well,
a death sentence.
yeah, yes and no. And here's the way I looked at that. And I think we talked about this at least a few weeks ago. If there's a chance that they have, I think it may be against the Eagles because those other games are within 10 days of each other, the Ravens and the Chiefs. And who, I mean, like I said, why couldn't it be like the Jags and the Titans? No, we got to have the 3 of the 5 top teams in 10 freaking days
Yeah.
to do that with. But, if you watch the Eagles game at all on Sunday, they're having a passing problem right now. Even though they have Jalen Hurts, He hasn't thrown for over 200 yards in almost a month. And so they're actually kind of hurting. He only threw for like 108 yards on Sunday. Uh, and I think AJ Brown had like 43 of the yards, and that's it. I mean, they are really having a problem passing the rock right now. And that now the only problem is Saquon Barkley is playing like his out of his mind. He just set the all-time Eagles rushing record for a single season. So they are running and running the ball, and they're still doing what they're doing. So in a weird twist of fate, it's almost kind of like, we don't have an AJ Brown. God, I wish we did. But if that's our path to get into the playoffs is running backs and tight ends, then maybe that's it. But yeah, no, I think the defense could actually stand a chance. But you're right. Without Pickens, it's probably not a good chance because the Eagles are just red hot. They also, even though he's had trouble passing, they've also won 9 straight games against
Yeah,
some pretty good teams, including the Ravens.
yeah. Let's talk about Pat Fryermuth. He started slow this season.
Mhm.
Um, and we anticipated that he would have a huge season. And it just didn't seem to work. I mean, but I'm looking at the last 3 games. Um, the first time they played Cleveland, he had 4 receptions on 4 targets for 59 yards, no touchdowns. Against Cincinnati, 6 receptions for 68 yards and a touchdown. And in this game, 3 receptions for 48 yards and a touchdown. It seems like finally you have this connection between um Wilson and Firemouth. And it's about damn time. I mean, we've been waiting.
Yeah.
From the minute we drafted Firemouth, we're going to say, okay, this might be our Kelsey. This might be our George Kittle. This might be our star tight end. And it's not there yet, but maybe it's getting there.
It might, and that's the thing. I mean, it's so hard to have a tight end that sticks above like an Antonio Gates or some of these guys that you almost command the ball. And I think Muth could have been commanding it now if you want to, but also, like we give a lot of like the asterisks to some of these guys playing under Matt Canada. And Pat Fryermuth is probably one of the most outspoken people in the locker room, with him being gone, saying things are going to be different now. And you're right. And tight ends are funky like that. Like if you've ever played fantasy, which you and I played fantasy for a hell of a long time, I'm going to be 20 years in my league next year. Um, Tight ends are one of those weird guys. Like they always seem to be, they bloom in November, December, and it's like all of a sudden you have like Trey McBride from the Arizona Cardinals last year. He was on absolute fire last year. He's like the hottest player in the league. He came out of nowhere. And
Yeah.
so maybe Muth is kind of in that. Tight ends are fickle like that. It's rare that you have a Kelsey or Gates or a Gonzalez or something like that. But maybe you're right, Joe. And I would like to have seen a little bit more than 3 catches for 48 yards. But hey, that's right about where you want a tight end to be, I guess. So I was thinking I wanted more of that because we didn't have Pickens. So yeah, I don't know. And I'll tell you what, it's refreshing to see him get the ball. Scotty Miller didn't look too bad with his 3 receptions for 38 yards. I mean, he didn't look great either, but they're finding a way to win right now, and that's what you got to do. And I don't know if we're going to talk about it here tonight, but episode 1 of Hard Knocks, late season or whatever they're calling it, where they're doing the AFC North, was really fun to watch. And it really does bring home how valuable these wins are because right now they have 2 games in hand on the Ravens. And Joe, and December 9th, that's big.
It's big. Yeah, this is almost a dream season for the Steelers. Yeah, let's talk about Hard Knocks. It was fascinating, seeing behind the scenes of some of the things. I thought one of the things that was fascinating was in that Cincinnati game when Pickens basically, I don't want to say caused the pick six, but he did not he was a contributing factor. he goes to the sidelines, and we could hear what Mike Tomlin told him, and he basically gave him a pep talk, and he was like basically grabbing him, like, listen to me, look at me, like he was willing him to say, you do not get down on yourself. We need you. We need you to pick it up. And that's like that was just a master class in psychology and giving somebody a pep talk, and that's what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is the whole country's like, oh my God, this is Mike Tomlin. He's an amazing motivator. He's an amazing coach. And I'm like, we see this all the time. We already know, but maybe the whole country is figuring it out.
Yeah, and it's the one thing I took out of it was when they did a lot of the behind the scenes stuff with him, which we've never actually seen before, ever. And I don't think a lot of people in the nation realize that. I mean, maybe other people have better access. I don't know. But it's always kind of being like the secret boys club, like what Tomlin comes out, gives his Tomlinisms, and it turns out he actually does the same crap to the players and everything too. So I was thinking, like, hey, he's actually the same guy that we see talking to us. He talks to them the same way. And I mean, he but it was interesting to see. He doesn't like that. So he agreed to do it somehow, and they got him to do it. And you can ask my wife, I'm a huge sports documentary junkie. If there's something on Netflix or Paramount or Apple Plus, I'm all over it. And that could be about the, Washington Bullets or something, changing their name to I'll watch it. And as lame as that would be. But I really, what I always consider a good documentary, Joe, is when they show us something we haven't seen before, we didn't know. And it was really interesting to see, like, the Steelers and the Bengals kind of prepping for each other, and the Bengals coach telling them, like, this is a game we have to win. And, you're sitting there thinking, oh, we know what happens, but, and like, we know what's happened for a long time. And, I also thought, not to pick on you poor Bengals fans, but let's do that. When they start the montage, the beginning of it, what do they lead into? They lead into the Steelers and the Ravens hitting each other, and the Browns and the Steelers, and the Browns and the Ravens whole Art Modell moves the team to Baltimore. It was like 38 seconds before they even mentioned the Bengals. And what do they and what then they do, and it's like the Bengals getting crushed by the Ravens and then the Steelers. And they finally showed, like, TJ Hushmanzada with the terrible towel. And I want to say, how the hell did that turn out for you, jackass? And
Right.
it's just like, boy, the Bengals are a sad sister of the AFC North, and whatever. But we that's something we've been saying on this podcast for 3 years. But it was good. It was interesting, and it gave us something I think a lot of us have not seen before. Maybe guys like Ed Bouchette or Jerry Dulac have, but Mark Cavalli. But you and guys like you and I, or my wife or my dad, have never seen stuff like that.
Yeah, it was fascinating. Yeah, at first, when I saw it, it's like, oh, this is the same old crap. I see these, I watch, all these Tomlin press conferences, the same old crap, and then it's like, no, 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 it got good. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So, yeah, very, very interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they tackle um this game and the yeah, how they tackle this game. Uh, I have the Rock back here because last week I guaranteed that the Steelers would win.
You did. You did. You
And
came through. Let's talk about that. Nice
it-
guarantee.
yeah, yeah. I just figured revenge. That Thursday night game was literally, we joke, oh, it's Cleveland's Super Bowl. It really is. Their whole pathetic existence relies on just beating the Steelers. Congratulations. Good job.
Yeah.
You got your one win. Yay. But what is it? It was up until this past week, 20 years in a row that the Browns have not won in Pittsburgh, and I think it was like 1988 since they swept the Steelers in the season. Like
Yeah.
it's a guarantee that they're going to lose in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I do have a lot of friends that are Browns fans, and they're pretty good guys, and um it's it's just bad. I mean, and that's just what it is. And I think I'm so glad that they did a documentary on AFC North. I probably would have watched it, Joe, no matter what. I told you about that a little bit ago, but I'm not trying to be a homer, but I really don't think there's just anything else like the AFC North. It's the Rust Belt. I mean, the AFC East is kind of fun, but the Patriots dominated the last decade and a half or so much. It's just not as fun. And the Jets are always suck.
And now the Bills are dominating, and the rest of the teams suck. That's
Right.
all it
I think
is
the
one good
yeah.
team and three crap teams.
Right, and I mean, even maybe the closest comparison is the NFC North, just because of the history. Bears, Packers, but the Bears have sucked so damn long. And the Vikings are this year could have been fun. The Packers are pretty good. Vikings are very good. And the Lions are very good. So that could be fun. But that's the only Joe. That's a distant second, if you ask me. It just is. So this is where it's at, and it's a lot of fun. And I'd hope they keep on doing it. I'd keep on watching it. So. Um, but yeah, they did a good job with the Ravens. It was very interesting to see all of that and see how they prep. And I'll be very interested to see. I guess we won't see it until after they play, but it'll be interesting to see the Ravens Steelers game whenever they get to that, whatever episode that's going to be. But yeah, I liked it a lot. It was really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I I still can't believe I loved the Hard Knocks of the Giants, the off-season
Yes,
one.
and the Bears one was good too.
Yeah, yeah. The the uh the Giants were absolute idiots to allow them to film them, especially when we saw all the Saquon Barkley drama unfold and how idiotic that organization looks. I mean,
And
you have the city of Philadelphia chanting, "Thank you, Giants."
I
That's
know
how bad things are.
I
It
can't
was like a
imagine. I think
gift.
that's why. Yeah. And that's why, like, we were talking a little bit about maybe kicking around a possibility. Could the Steelers get Amari Cooper? And you got to give the Browns credit. The Browns aren't going to do something that stupid because could
Right.
you imagine if we had Amari Cooper right now? He would be having himself a very good season. I'm not saying it would be off the charts. It could be, but I mean, he would be. And right now, he'd be in number one position. And who's to say he might not have overtaken Pickens because of all the drama and crap that Pickens brings. But I think Amari Cooper coming here would have been huge for him and for us. But the Browns were smart enough not to do that, so they shipped him off to Buffalo. And he had a very nice game in that crazy game against the Rams yesterday. But yeah, how you could give it to the Eagles, and I have a very good friend's a diehard Eagles fan. It's just, I told him I own a couple Steelers jerseys, and that's it. I don't own anything else. Penn State, Pens, Steelers. I'm so tempted to buy a Saquon Barkley Eagles jersey, the old fashioned one, right? The Kelly green, not the midnight green. I like the Kelly green.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, yeah, and it'd be crazy.
Um, Yeah, the Eagles. Yeah, I guarantee the Steelers win against the Browns, and unfortunately, I'm guaranteeing a Steelers loss in
Okay,
Philadelphia. That's with or without Pickens. There's just something about playing in Philadelphia. I think the Steelers haven't won in Philadelphia since like 1959 or something like that. I don't think either of us are that old to be around since then, but
I I think you're smarter than I am. I think you're probably going to be right. I'm going to just say I think the Steelers might win this one just for whatever reason because I think it's the most winnable of the three games. Well, I don't know. Because you know what, the Chiefs can God like bless the
my
Chiefs anymore with
God,
that field goal on Sunday? Like, I don't know
every
if y'all went to
week.
mass or they sung in a Baptist church or whatever they did, but the Chiefs have, like, God, right? They might as well put a manger scene on the
Every
practice field.
week. My
I mean,
God.
every week they somehow squeak out a win by, like, that field goal had no business going in. I think God was just like, you know what? Wink, and
How
like,
many times? How many times do we see a field goal doink and it
yeah,
usually bounces the other way? It's usually
it,
no
it
good. Like,
bounces
no, no,
in.
no, it doinks in their favor.
So you bring the Chiefs here on Christmas Day. Is that in Kansas City or Pittsburgh?
It's in Pittsburgh.
So the Steelers host the Chiefs on Christmas Day. Now you'd think that whole God is on their side thing probably would be good on Christmas, but maybe on Christmas Day, God says, you know what, guys, have this whole thing going on. It's a good day for me. I'm gonna take the day off. You're on your own, and
Hey,
maybe the Steelers will smoke them.
it's my kid's birthday. I'm busy.
It's my kid's
Uh,
birthday, right? So I mean, uh, the Chiefs are beatable is where I'm going with this, all joking aside. The Chiefs are beatable. So they could beat the Chiefs, but I just feel like I don't know, Joe. There's something there. Um, but I think you're smarter than I am in this pick. I'll take the Steelers, but I think you're right. You're probably 99% right
Well,
on that. But
the thing we talked about their lack of wide receivers all year. We also talked about all year about the gauntlet, the 3 game stretch.
and we're here.
Now it begins
It begins.
at
Yep.
Eagles next Sunday, at Ravens next Saturday, and then home to the Chiefs on Christmas 4 freaking days later. That's oh my
And that's what I'm saying. Like maybe they lose to the Chiefs or maybe they win, Joe. But I have a feeling that's going to be a fun game. Like close game, field goal game. If it's a field goal game, we definitely I think may have an advantage. But then you have all that hype. Like maybe they beat the Chiefs. And it's like, oh my God, we won 23-20, whatever it's gonna be. But now you got to go play the Ravens. Or I'm sorry, you come off the Ravens and you maybe somehow squeak out another one, sweep out the Ravens yet again. But then you got to go against the Chiefs. And any chance you do have a beating them, maybe went down the drain because their record after playing the Ravens is so horrific. I don't know. But yeah,
I'm trying to be realistic here, and I would love the number 1 seed. I don't think it's happening. All I want at this point is the division title. I want that
oh
division
yeah,
title, and I want that home game.
me
I
too.
want and to do that, you have to beat the Ravens. Now, they have 2 games up on them right now.
Yes.
So of all the games, the Eagles game is the least important because it's an NFC game. You lose that, yeah, it sucks, but you're still okay. But I think the most important game out of all these is at Ravens. If you beat the Ravens, you win the division, and you could just coast the last 2 games. They won't matter.
That's true because the Ravens have a fairly easy schedule after us. They got the Texans and the Browns. Well,
They gotta play
Texans not
they
easy.
play the Giants next, for God's sake.
Yeah, they
That's
play
a
the Giants. Yeah, they got the Giants and then the Texans. Texans is not a gimme game. And I will say this: all the crap we just talked about the Browns. Um, the Browns are are very good at when they're at home getting up for games that don't matter. So I could see the Ravens waltzing in there, and the Browns are like, you know what? Hey guys, we know if you win today, you might win the title. So we're gonna make this miserable, and we're gonna sweep you instead. And we may all be like, "Go Browns!" on the fifth.
You think you think the Browns hate us? What do you think they feel about the team that took them?
I know.
Those that the Ravens are the Browns. They were stolen from them. You stole our team. There is always a hatred there, and they will always, I don't care what's going on. The Browns will always play the Ravens hard.
I
Um,
grew up on the border of PA and Ohio, and when that was in '94, um, and there was rumors of it in the beginning of the year, but none of my friends, which are still I'm friends with, never bought into it. They like the Browns, and even though like all the crap we talk on the Browns, they're essentially they are a cornerstone team of the NFL. Let's be honest. They have won a Super Bowl, which is funny. Never even been to one. I know you guys won championships in the 50s and 60s when there was like 5 other teams and you were playing the Duluth box cutters, but still, uh, it's almost unimaginable what happened to the Browns, what happened to them. And then I remember, and I don't think this would be the same if this ever happened in Pittsburgh. But I remember like when it did happen, like the big station out of Youngstown, Ohio, which is close to me, was Hot FM 101. They were having like, it's almost like when you see like an unfortunately like a mass shooting event or something like that, and they have like counselors the next day. They were having counselors back then, like, hey, from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, we're meeting in this parking lot, and and I mean, it was like they're all wearing a Bernie Kosar jerseys back then and everything else, and it hurt them. And I remember Joe that Steelers Browns game, the Steelers fans wearing orange armbands.
yeah.
And I remember Dan Rooney insisting that that be a free giveaway where orange armbands. Every fan in the stand that last Browns home game at the River Stadium got an orange armband. And just yeah, so that's the thing about the Browns and the thing about, I just have a funny feeling the Ravens might lose that game.
I hate the Browns, but it just broke my heart that they lost their team. that you would never wish that on anybody. I
Right.
love I love to hate you. I love to beat you, but I don't want you to lose your team. I remember that very vividly. I just felt so bad for them. That's just and I think everybody did. I mean, I think the league like immediately said, "Don't worry, you're getting another team."
Right. Yeah, and they did. And that was Tim Couch, and those were horrible.
Ugh.
Um, but yeah, then I have a friend that's a season ticket holder for the Ravens. He has been for ever since their inception. And some Browns fans got into him with one day. He goes, "Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa." He goes, "Actually," because they were giving him the fact you stole our team. He goes, "Actually, our team was stolen before yours." And
Exactly.
I
They
was
the
a teenager
exact
when it
same thing
happened. He
happened with
said,
the Colts
"Yeah, they shipped us out to Indianapolis, and if Peyton
in
Manning
the
would have
middle of
gone
the
there, they'd
night.
still be insignificant as poop." And you have right. So the Colts are the Colts in Indianapolis, and then they didn't have a team. So it's just interesting, and I'll look forward to see how Hard Knocks covers that. I hope they cover that kind of crazy when that comes up. But yeah, Joe, I mean, the gauntlet is here. The clock's ticking, and game one is this Sunday. And you're right, it's at Philadelphia. So I don't
gonna
know.
get it's gonna get real interesting. I
Yeah,
don't know. Conventional wisdom would say, well, they might lose the next three in a row. But that's not gonna happen. They're probably gonna go 1-2. Hell, they might even go 2-1. And another thing is, right now, the the Chiefs with their ridiculous wins and their ridiculous luck, they are 12-1. The Bills and the Steelers are 2 games behind at 10-3. At some point soon, we only have what, 4 games left? At some point soon, the Chiefs are going to clinch the number one seed. Once they clinch the number one seed, they really have nothing to play for. And maybe if they have nothing to play for, they'll play their backups on Christmas against the
they
Steelers.
might. They might. I mean, I kind of brings me to the next subject here because I guess if you were playing the Panthers, well, which they almost lost to, I guess they were playing to a low level team. They might play Mahomes or starters, but you are playing the Steelers, right? You have T.J. Watt, you have Highsmith, you have some guys that can hurt you. Watt actually technically had a little bit of a better game than Garrett yesterday. He had 6 tackles to Garrett's 5, but Garrett had a sack. And then walking around doing the whole thing like that, and I just I don't we've talked about this before. I really hope, I guess, TJ Watt is A-okay, health wise. I know he's got a baby on the way. I wouldn't think that would affect how he plays, but I think a lot of us right now we're not, you know, dogpiling on the guy, but we're kind of like, where's TJ Watt gone? Because he's been somewhat invisible, or just not invisible. He just has not been the TJ Watt we're used to for the last 5 weeks. He started off hot, and then he's not been what he used to be, Joe.
Yeah,
At least not this
yeah,
season.
yeah. And I mean, other people are stepping up. Cam Hayward is people are talking about Cam Hayward for defensive player of the year.
Yeah,
They might be onto something there. He is
yeah.
having a phenomenal season. And look at yesterday. The Steelers could not do anything on offense, and they were losing 7-3. Uh, uh, and then there was the Browns try a screen, and Benton intercepts it, and that almost changed the whole game.
It did. It did. Well, I mean, the crowd was up. I mean, it was very loud there for Heinz Field. It was very good. He intercepted it. That turned the game around. The pass, the roughing the passer in Highsmith was just horse crap. I mean, what an awful call that was. But no, I mean, you had an interception from him. Then you had was it I'm trying to think of who had the other interception.
One, James
Yeah,
Pierre.
James Pierre, look out. Number 42 himself picks a pass off. That was great. And that's what Jameis Winston does. He's a gunslinger, but he's gonna throw some stupid passes, and he did it yesterday. But yeah, James Pierre, he stepped in there and picked him off. And yeah, I, I don't know, Joe. I mean, I feel like this defense is opportunistic. I just think the one thing I'd like to have seen is between Joey Porter and Mika. Some of those guys have a few more interceptions than what they have this season. I think that's another thing we've been waiting for. The only thing we can think of, Joe, is either it's just going to continue this way, or maybe just maybe these guys might come alive here in these next couple weeks. And then if they do, then yeah, I think we are kind of in that mention of possible Super Bowl contenders.
Wait, is Minka still on the team?
Yeah.
Is he
Yeah,
still does he still play football for Pittsburgh? Because
still on the
I'm
team.
not aware of his existence.
Yeah, because he's not doing what you want him to do. I mean, he's been tackling in each game. He's not been invisible that way. He's been making some very good tackles. But he's just not ball hawking like he used to, and that's why he's there. It's great that he's making tackles, but he's also there to try to turn over the ball, turn the tide, and cover receivers on tight ends. And he's been doing that. Just the one big thing it's missing is no picks, and he actually has blown some coverages too.
Yeah, yeah. That has been a hot button topic all season, and it's basically two sides. One says, "What the heck is wrong with Minka? There's no interception. He hasn't had an interception for like 2 or 3 years now. There's no interceptions. There's no forced fumbles. There's no splash plays. There's no what the heck." And then the other side is, oh, the high educated side is like, I know football. And by the way, you don't, you silly little stupid person who expects those splash plays. Actually, Minka does a lot in the defense. He prevents the deep ball, and he does this, and he allows the team to do this, and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, but he's basically paid $21.3 million to be a scarecrow. You have to expect more from. Well, I mean, that's like yelling at the Avengers because, like, oh, what do they do? And meanwhile, they just saved the world or something like that. We don't know what he actually does, but for all the money he makes, that's a lot of money for no splash.
Yeah, he's like I don't know, Zan and Jan, the Wonder Twins back there. Somebody just didn't matter back in the day. Aquaman. I know Aquaman's not part of the Avengers. I'm smart enough to know that, but yeah, yeah, he's just not doing what he needs to do. And I mean, but they're still doing okay with. But you would just think that, man, if one of those guys would be what they were at least the last year. Joey Porter Jr. does seem to be going through a sophomore slump with the penalties. Not as bad yesterday as the week before. He cleaned that up a little bit. Played pretty decent ball, but Deshaun Elliott's been fantastic. He's been a very good player for the Steelers. And you mentioned Cam Hayward before. I don't know if he'll get Defensive Player of the Year, but he's sitting at 30 tackles and 8 sacks. You might be able to kick him around for Comeback Player of the Year. Yeah, because last year he obviously being injured and everything didn't have the year that we normally are used to from Cam, but he may get Comeback Player of the Year defensively.
How are you getting double-digit sacks from a defensive lineman every single year?
Right?
That's insane.
Yeah.
And
It
he's
is.
35, or is I forget, one of his teammates is like, Cam Hayward's 45 out there putting the second.
In football years, he's like 58, right?
Pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean that's the thing. Patrick Queen, and he actually, it was funny. I don't know if you saw it. Some random Ravens fan, uh, tweeted out yesterday morning, "Where's Patrick Queen?" Well, Patrick Queen had 10 tackles yesterday, 2 for a loss. He
I
tweeted
think
back
Patrick
at him.
Craig required, well, how many tackles did you have?
Yeah, how many tackles did you have, right? And yeah, it was funny, and there's a couple interesting things. And I don't know if you saw some wife from the Browns tweeted out, "I've never been tweeted or treated so harshly from Pittsburgh fans." And I'm like, you know what? Let me tell you something. I've been to
Really?
Cleveland during a Cleveland Steelers game. I have been yelled at. I've had things thrown at me. Lady, welcome to the NFL.
What did
Grow
you
a check.
expect?
What did you expect? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What did you expect? Because get out of here. Go back to Cleveland.
It was very funny that the one play that Myles Garrett had, he's like, shh. And oh, by the way, the crowd was very loud, had a very loud Cleveland sucks chance, which
The
is
Cleveland sucks chant was very easy. Tony Romo saying, "I don't think you're saying go Cleveland," or whatever. Yeah, it was.
so
But no,
Miles.
yeah, despite the TJ Watt thing, I mean, they held Chubb to under 50 yards rushing.
Yeah.
They did everything they needed to really do, and I'm not so sure Chubb's been the same as he was since last year when he got hurt in
Nah,
Pittsburgh.
he's not.
And that was unfortunate. We don't want to see anyone hurt, but yeah, Joe. So now they're rolling against this Philadelphia team, and like you said, the history in Philly isn't great, but they're also not facing Nick Chubb. You're facing Saquon Barkley, and he's arguably the hottest player in the NFL right now offensively.
See, the reason why I have optimism is the Eagles remind me of the Ravens. You have a good quarterback that can run very well, and you have a great running back. Well, what did we do to the Ravens? We always make Lamar Jackson look bad, and Derrick Henry didn't do that much. And I know Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry are completely different players, and Saquon Barkley is like I mean, he's MVP level this year, but still. Um,
Yeah. Uh, And that's the thing they're gonna have to contend with. I mean, Joey Porter Jr. is gonna have to bring an A game against AJ Brown. Because the other thing you could say is, well, Jalen Hurts hasn't passed for over 200 yards in 3 games. You could also say he's due. Don't let it
right.
be against us, right? Grant Calcaterra, I think that's how you say his name. He's kind of coming out of nowhere. He had a touchdown yesterday. He's become a favorite target of Jalen Hurts. It's like I said before, these tight ends that kind of come out of nowhere, like Trey McBride last year. All of a sudden, you don't have them on the radar. You don't have a lot of game film on them, and they're going to hurt you. The Steelers do pretty good. But David Njoku had a nice game yesterday, so
Mhm.
that will be another guy they're going to have to contend with that kind of a mini hot streak in Philly with Grant. And so yeah, but AJ Brown he is a monster. He is a guy that can hurt you and put up some points. And I know it hasn't been good lately as an AJ Brown owner in fantasy, I can tell you that. But this could be a game where if you let up, he could have a comeback game. You don't want that.
When did they play in Philadelphia? Was it last year or 2 years ago?
It was maybe 2 years ago.
Maybe 2 years ago. And AJ Brown basically played with the Steelers like a cat plays with a dead mouse. He
Right.
just destroyed them. That was an absolute destruction. Yeah, you have to stop AJ Brown. You have to
And
stop
Saquon Barkley.
and Saquon
Yep.
Barkley. Oh, by
Yep.
the way, Devontae Smith. Oh, by the way, they're tight end.
Yeah, Devontae Smith, they got a tight end. It's pretty hot. Like I said, just all you need. And I just kind of think with Jalen Hurts throwing for 108 yards against the Panthers defense, got to give you some encouragement. Bryce Young had a better day than he did. Bryce Young had a better day than he did.
Yeah, that is
So
surprising that I was completely wrong about Bryce Young, and I'm happy that I was wrong. I mean, and I mean he looked like completely, clueless, like not in an NFL quarterback. And then after he came back and like his last month, he's been really playing really well. So good for him, good for
yeah,
Carolina.
he's coming along. He's coming
Um,
along.
yeah. My fantasy team's called Hurts So Good. Okay, so that tells you what who I have on my team. But I think also the Philadelphia offense is potentially scary, but also potentially scary is that Philadelphia defense, and especially that defensive line. That's what the Eagles do. That's Andy Weidel is from the Philadelphia organization, and I think he's
Right.
brought that philosophy here. And that philosophy is you want a strong offensive line and you want a strong defensive line, and that defensive line for Eagles is just I'm afraid. I'm afraid because the Steelers offensive line is not that strong, and they might get swallowed up.
They could. N'Kobe Dean, Zach Braun, all had pretty good games. And, Cooper DeJean, he was, again, a guy I really would like to have seen the Steelers draft. He's been, and a lot of the Eagles fans will tell you this, right? Who follow the team die hard is he's a big reason they're kind of back. Last year, their defensive backs were so horrible that they just, a lot of games got away from them. Kind of the opposite of the Chiefs. They were in a lot of games, but second half, they couldn't hang. And so they definitely fixed the spot, bringing him in. That was a great pickup for them. And yeah, the Eagles are, lack for a better term, they're soaring right now. So yeah, yep. And then you have to think after barely beating the Carolina team, you should have smoked. They got a little pissed, so they're probably coming in this game like, okay, We got a little embarrassed almost yesterday,
Yeah.
Sunday. So we got to prove our will. We're at home. We're against the Steelers. I'm not sure what the over and under is going to be for how many times they're going to mention the whole Steagles thing. I say at least 5. Um,
I just hope. Oh yeah, they always throw that in. But my big fear, please. Now, Jameis Winston said in the game after the Broncos game where they barely lost and he threw 2 pick sixes. He said, "I know I'm better than this, and I'm just praying for the Lord to deliver me from pick sixes." Now the Lord answered his prayer. The Lord answered his prayer, and he did not get any pick sixes. He should have been. Now, unfortunately, he was too specific. You should have said, "Lord, deliver me from interceptions,"
right.
because he is an interception machine. But I'm just saying, whatever God you believe in, I just do not want Kenny Pickett to come into the game in
Oh,
like they're winning 38-6 or something like that, and it's just mop up time or something like that. Because he would come in like Vince McMahon strutting. He'd be like,
oh yeah,
and he would
yeah.
throw every single throw would be a bomb. He would just like he wants to get back at the Steelers so bad.
Oh, I can't even
Just
stomach.
go Kenny Pickett.
I couldn't imagine Twitter with the Pitt fans, how they,
Oh,
because there's some delusional Pitt fans out there still think he's, actually good.
they're
And
still defending him.
yeah, they're still defending him, and I guess they will till whatever. But no, I mean, that would be the all-time. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it'd be a nightmare because you don't want them to lose the Eagles no matter what. Who's a quarterback? But
Yeah.
yeah, that would be. You're right. He would be like Vince McMahon and cutting and strutting. He'd be there like Brutus of Barber Beefcake, and give me some head clippers and whatever. But it would be, yeah, it would be very interesting. Um, I don't know that. Yeah, I mean, and I'm not. I just, Joe. I mean, it's an important game for them to try to win. If they can go into Philly and beat the Eagles, they're going to turn some heads. I think they're starting to turn some heads. Again, we're Pittsburgh guys, and I'm not sure I'm agreeing with Tony Romo that the Steelers are Super Bowl contenders. But if they go into Philly and beat the Eagles and somehow take 2 out of these next 3 in this ridiculous span, maybe they will be. I don't know.
Just look at
Maybe they
the
are.
difference. Maybe we are because look at how I mean we won 27-14 and we're acting like it was a loss. Now, in previous years, this game either was a loss or we would win 16-14 or some crazy thing like that. But we were actually winning 27-7 and doing going in the prevent defense that fourth quarter.
Right.
So man, this team is different, and this team is different because of Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
So I
There's a
we'll
lot
see.
of things that are
We'll see.
equal. I mean, the Eagles right now are sitting at a 5.5 point favorite in this game. They're 5-1 at home. We're 5-2 on the road. So, anything could happen. I mean, it's the game of the week on Fox. It's 4:25, and it's an afternoon game. And that's the only thing I'm thinking is, uh, please be competitive in a national game.
Everybody's watching. Please,
Right,
please don't embarrass us.
right, yeah, yeah. I don't care if it's close. I don't care if you win 10-6, but or lose 10-6, but just don't lose 37-10 or something like that.
A couple things I saw. Apparently the Eagles are like the slowest starting team ever. They just don't score in the first quarter or something like that. So if possible, the Steelers can like go out to a quick lead or something like that, and maybe throw them off their game. But the other thing about the Eagles is, as talented as they are, and yes, they won a bunch of games and they're looking good now, but they have this tendency to like implode and like fight within each other. So if we could get a lead on them and make them like just beat themselves and implode and have them fight each other or something like that, that'd be nice.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. It'd be good. We'll be trendsetters that way. But yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting game in all aspects. I mean, it really does say, hey, how serious of contenders are the Steelers? We're going to know after Sunday. And then, like you said, then you got to turn around and get ready for the Ravens in 5 days. They play the Ravens on Saturday, and the Ravens get to walk through the Giants, who are in a battle with the Raiders now for the worst record in football. And Yeah, I don't. I'm not even sure who's the number one draft pick right now. I don't know if it's the Giants or the Raiders that are in the driver's seat on that one. But yeah, Ravens get a cakewalk, and we get probably arguably the best team in the NFC next to the Lions.
Well, the way it stands right now, the Steelers are 10-3, the Ravens are 8-5 with 4 games to go. So the Steelers would have to go if they went 0-4, or if they went like 0-4 these last 4 games, then all the Ravens would have to do is, I guess, go 2-2. But they got a 2-game lead with 4 games to go. That's real hard to mess up.
It is, unless you're handed a schedule that you're handled, and that's the thing
Yeah,
we've been talking about this gauntlet since August. Is that, and we knew then. I mean, provided there was some kind of major collapse, that these three teams were going to be good teams, and we were right. I mean, the Eagles are number 2 in the NFC. The Chiefs are arguably number 1 or 2. Bills losing yesterday, I'd say the Chiefs probably take over number 1 in the AFC right now. Both on my sheet, and their number 1 seed right now in the playoffs with only 1 loss to the Bills, but the Bills have 3 losses, the Chiefs have 1. So you got to give the nod to the Chiefs. So in a span of 10 days, they're playing the number 1 team in the AFC, the number 2 team in the NFC, and the Ravens are arguably top 4 in the AFC. So good God almighty, good God in the goose fat. That
yeah.
is just whew,
But
tall
that,
order.
but let's say, God forbid, they lose these next 3 games. Then you're 10-6, and it might come down to the last game, which is
Cincinnati.
Bengals coming here.
Or yeah,
And
Pittsburgh and Cincinnati.
I mean, Bengals are like this close to being eliminated. Hell, they might be eliminated later tonight.
Yeah.
What are they going to care? Like, why would they even bother playing Joe Burrow and Chase and all those guys? They might just play scrubs or something like that. This might be the way to win. It might come down to the last game of the season.
Yeah, well, the Cowboys, it's just hilarious how bad Dallas is at home. I mean, they're
Yeah,
puke.
they
And
never win.
no, there's a good chance. In fact, there was a what the hell was it? I don't know if it was whoever played there this past Saturday. They scored 5 touchdowns, and that's like 3 more than the Cowboys have scored at home all year. I thought that was pretty funny. Anytime you can make fun of the Cowboys, but yeah. So the Bengals could win tonight, but I think you're right. I think the Bengals are in so much turmoil. And I think if you get in that last week of the season, if they're not in the playoffs, which it doesn't look like they're going to even sniff it, they are. I don't think they're going to cash in their chips. It's an away game. They have nothing else to win for. They're just going to be ready to be done. You think Jamar Chase is going to ball out in Pittsburgh in the last game of the year when he knows he's going into a massive contract year and T Higgins
Exactly.
too? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah.
going to give their best effort in that game. So it should be an easy win for the Steelers. But whew, to get there is going to be a tough task, man. Really tough task.
The gauntlet begins. We will see what happens. It's going to
So
be a very interesting next 3 weeks.
yeah. Now I tell you the one thing that I thought was interesting, and I'm glad the Steelers did this because it always kind of made me mad that they didn't. But a few years ago, they finally decided to have their own Ring of Honor, Hall of Honor, like the Cowboys have a Ring of Honor, the Eagles, these teams, and the 4 guys that the Steelers chose this year, really good guys, Joe. Dick LeBeau, Willie Parker, Jason Gilden, and Big Snack, who looks phenomenal now, by the way.
Little snack.
Yeah, he looks like a little snack now. Those are the 4 guys they put in a Ring of Honor, which is it's a great selection, and it's a very interesting selection. Willie Parker's a guy, we really never see anything like him since. We've always been used to kind of the guys that will bruise you. I'd say, I guess Najee Harris is in that realm, but Najee Harris will knock you over. Willie was just find the hole and go Mach 6 to the end zone. And he was a great little running back for us, helped us to win, 2 Super Bowls. So that was great. But then Jason Gilden's another guy that I was interested in that Ring of Honor, Joe, because he's the guy that probably doesn't get nearly the respect he deserves. We're so Jack Lambert, Joe Green, Kevin Green, Greg Lloyd, Levon Kirkland, you got Palomalu, all the guys all down the line. And you're like, Jason Gilden led the team in sacks until just not too long ago.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you were the all-time sack leader until just 2 years ago or a year ago when Watt broke it. Or
Look at
yeah,
this 5-year period for Jason Gilden. 1998, 11 sacks. 1999, 8.5 sacks. 2000, 13.5 sacks. 2001, 12 sacks. He was 2002, 9 sacks. The dude was a beast. He started, his first year was 94, so he was part of those awesome 90s, late 90s defenses.
right,
You're
right.
right. It
When the
does
Steelers
not
let
get, and the Hall of Honor, the Steelers Hall of Honor is perfect for a player like that. He's never going to get in the Hall of Fame.
no,
Forget that.
nope.
But as a Steelers Hall of Fame, heck yeah, he's the perfect person for that. And yeah, he had a great career that we don't talk enough about.
Right. He came in on the wings because I remember Chad Brown was so great, and he goes to the Seahawks. And I remember my dad being so upset about that because he loved Chad Brown. And you come in and you're behind two big personalities, and Kevin Green with the big flowing blonde hair, who's also in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And of course, Greg Lloyd, who's, I think if you took a survey, Joe, on most Steeler fans, he's probably top 10 of all time for Steelers fans. He's
Yeah.
just, he is so beloved in Pittsburgh. And you got to play behind those two guys. And, in reality, you probably ended up outplaying them, and because Lloyd was gone in 96 of the Panthers. And I think Kevin Green were both gone, and Gilden's left, and all of a sudden, boom. And then the weird part about that, Joe, is he comes in that way. He sticks around the team, and I've got to be honest, the Steelers team, some of those Steelers teams in the late 90s were not good. They were 8-8, 7-10 at one
Right.
point.
Yeah.
And then he goes out right before they go on this high streak into the Super Bowls, and it's like he kind of was in here in a weird time.
Yeah.
But hell, he was by far probably our best defensive player for the better part of 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. And Casey Hampton never had the numbers, but he was so vital to that defense. He would swallow offensive linemen like he was a black hole in a galaxy or something like that. He was, what he was the one that allowed all those linebackers to have all that success because he would just take up the entire offensive line.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he really was. He was a big part of, getting the Steelers to be where they were in that time. And he just ate centers and left tackles and right tackles up all the time. He was very powerful. And he was one of those guys too. That initial push off that he would have was just so impressive and so powerful. And he'd be a half a yard deep before you could even really stop his momentum. And that allowed for other guys like Brett Kiesel to get in there and make plays. I mean, he was just incredible.
Yeah. And Willie Parker, um, he just he was the original one that when Tomlin said we're gonna run the wheels off this guy, he was talking about Willie Parker.
Right.
Um, but basically the defining play of his career was in the Super Bowl, and that was yeah, I just saw it not too long ago. Al Michael saying they call him Fast Willie Parker, and he's just flying to the end zone. Uh, he was a speedy guy, but he was also a tough guy. He basically had for like a 5-year period, he basically had the Steelers rushing game on his back. And that was at the tail end of Jerome Bettis' career. So
Right.
Bus couldn't do it anymore, and he kind of passed the baton to Willie Parker.
Well, yeah, and there's the famous footage of with the bus telling him, "Hey, this hole was there for me the last set. You go in there if that hole's for you." And I think that came out was at the third quarter in Super Bowl 30,
Yeah.
or well, not 30, 40, and Willie hit that hole. And again, big difference between Jerome hitting that hole at the end of his career and Willie in the prime of his career because Willie took it to the house. I mean, he was just gone. but he didn't know. I mean, Jerome told him that hole was going to be there because it was there for him. But he just couldn't get out past the linebacker. Well, Willie, that was a problem with Willie. He hit that second tier, and there wasn't a linebacker that was going to keep up with him at all. Gone. But yeah, that was great about Willie Parker.
And then Dick LeBeau.
Oh yeah.
Dick LeBeau was the perfect example of when they, when teams hire, make new hires as a head coach, and they'll take somebody that was an offensive or defensive coordinator, and it just doesn't work. Dick LeBeau was the head coach of the Bengals, and that just didn't work. But he was maybe one of the best defensive coordinators ever. I believe he invented the zone blitz. I could be wrong on that, or at least he carried on that tradition. And oh, by the way, he was a Hall of Fame player too.
Well, not only that, he was a Hall of Fame player. He was one of the most feared defensive backs of his time, right up there with Dick Night Train Lane. But he's also in the Lions, the Detroit Lions, Pride of the Lions. They have the Pride of the Lions there. He's there too. So he's in the Pride of the Lions. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's in the Steelers Hall of Honor. He's part of the Detroit Lions 1975 or all 75th team, I think it was. And when the Detroit Lions won their, before the Super Bowl, back when there were 6 teams, remember that, Browns? You know that well. When they won their championship in 1957, Dick LeBeau was on that team. And he looked phenomenal for 82 years of age.
Yeah.
You're sitting there watching like, holy crap. He's 82, and I was watching all of that off the Steelers thing because God knows, they didn't do but 5 seconds worth of it during the broadcast. So, but yeah. Yep.
So after he was with the Lions from 59 to 72, so a 13-year career. And then he starts as a coach, and he starts with the Steelers as a defensive backs coach from 92 to 94. Then he becomes defensive coordinator from 95 to 96. Then he goes to the Bengals, and he spends 5 years with the Bengals. And he was the head coach for 3 years. Then he comes back to Pittsburgh in 2004. He was a defensive coordinator. And I always think it's significant that in 2007, Mike Tomlin was named head coach. Mike Tomlin was a defensive guy. He was known for his defensive mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And he had his own system, the Tampa 2 or whatever that he learned from Tony Dungy. Yet, when he comes to Pittsburgh, now either he was told to do this or he decided on his own. But he's like, yeah, that guy's pretty good. I think we'll keep his system. I think we'll keep Dick LeBeau as a defensive coordinator and do what he says.
I don't know if he'll say anything about it tonight, but I thought, because he gets a lot of crap. Chris Collinsworth earlier this week, he came out and said, we had a decent offense when I was in Cincinnati. But he said the guy that brought our defense really to where it needed to be to get to those Super Bowls, which they lost to the Niners twice in the 80s, if you remember, Dick LeBeau was their defensive coordinator for those Bengals teams that went to the Super Bowl in the 80s. And those were good teams. David Fulcher, Carl Zander. A lot of people remember Tim Krumrie because of his gruesome injury in the Super Bowl 21 there. But that was Dick LeBeau that really got the Bengals defense there. So, his success is so far reaching. So it was great to see the Steelers finally put him in the Ring of Honor. And honestly, Dick LeBeau probably should have been in a couple of other times ago, but they got a lot of guys to get to.
Right. He was a coach from 1973 to 2017. So what? 50 years?
All the time I was alive.
Yeah. As long as we've been alive, he was a coach. Yeah, he's totally deserving of that. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if the Cincinnati Bengals have a Ring of Honor or whatever, but he should be in that. He was the defensive coach, or either the defensive backs coach or the defensive coordinator, basically all of the 80s for the Bengals.
Right. Yeah, he'd have to be in the inaugural class because there's not a lot of Bengals. I mean,
that'd be a short ceremony.
Yeah, let's see. Here's Kenny Anderson, Boomer Esiason.
Not TJ Houshmandzadeh.
Yeah, right. Not TJ.
Yeah, that'd be a short ceremony.
And somebody,
They did a on the local sports talk radio, they did a they said let's do a draft of all the Browns from like 1999 on, and they're like, well, there's Myles Garrett, and then
yeah.
uh
Uh,
Baker Mayfield,
Baker
baby.
Mayfield, maybe. Yeah, where I think if you had a draft prior to that, you could draft a hell of a team. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, but I thought that was good, and I'm glad the Steelers have embraced that like some other teams. I'm not sure why it took the Steelers so long to do it because I guess the Steelers already always operate on their own
Have
agenda. But
you ever been to the Hall of Honor Museum?
yes, it's very impressive.
It is I was there a few months ago. Very, very impressive. There is a little movie that they show basically the history of the Steelers. I cried like a baby, especially when I saw Franco.
Yeah.
Just watching Franco and hearing him talk and hearing him talk about the immaculate reception. I'm not afraid to admit it. I cried like a baby.
Um, Franco Harris probably in my life outside of my own parents, my immediate family, my wife, my son, whatever. Franco Harris would be easily one of the nicest people I've ever met. When we did the podcast after he passed away, that was difficult for me to do because I had worked with him on a couple of things with Penn State charities. So I've worked with him and knew him. Not like we're best friends, but one of the nicest guys ever. Just
Unfortunately, we're coming to the anniversary of his passing. I
yeah.
believe it was December 20th or 21st or
Mhm.
something like that. So yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah, anytime I see him it's just tough.
Well,
But
you go to Penn State and my tenure is coming to an end here this year, but I've been on council for a very long time and I sit on the advisory board still and I will continue to do that. But the number of Penn Staters that have worked with him in some capacity for children, for police officers, for injured veterans, for he did a thing for women with I forget what it's called, but I mean he did everything, and the nicest guy and always gave time. I one time, and I wasn't even with him. I remember I was coming across the Ohio Turnpike and I stopped at one of the last gates, and that was when I was living in Pittsburgh. It's like the last toll road, and then you hit by on like 680 and you come in, to Pittsburgh. That's where a lot of they get the famous T-shirt that you see a lot of times at the Strip. The only sign of life in Cleveland. It says
right.
Pittsburgh. It's right there.
Yeah.
It's right after that rest stop, and I saw him get out of the car, and it's Franco. The beard was there, and his walk, and he's a very tall guy. Unless you ever stood next to him, Franco was a big guy,
Big guy. Yeah.
and you see him walk, I'm like, holy crap, that's Franco. Okay, and so I'm getting out of my car, and people knew him, and he didn't turn any of them away. And it didn't take him like a ridiculous amount of time, but it took him a little to get back to his car. But he didn't turn anybody down.
Yeah.
You know,
That Hall of Honor Museum is just a reminder of what a wonderful organization filled with so many great players and great moments and great
mhm.
situations and great plays and great championships and stuff. It just a reminder of all that. So I encourage everybody to
Yeah.
go there, and then you combine that with a tour of the stadium. You go tour acupuncture field or whatever the heck they're calling it. And it's
Acupuncture field. I like that.
um the when Pat Fryermuth scored, he kicked the ball. It, just kind of in honor of George Pickens, which is really weird, but okay. But he kicked the ball, and the guy, some guy that caught it, he was like a minor celebrity today. He was on the sports talk show. There was a
I
video
know.
of him catching it. He was it's like only in Pittsburgh is a guy that caught a ball become a minor celebrity.
So maybe, and what a great point you just brought up. Maybe shame on us for not talking about this at the top of the show. I know we're getting close to closing it out here, but interesting thing about that, you kind of hated when George Pickens did it. You're like, come on, grow up, man. But I think he got so much crap for that. That was Muth's way of saying, hey, I'm your brother. I'm here for you. You couldn't be here today. I'm going to honor you by doing this. And a kind of a show of solidarity in a very interesting way. But that might be just something that kid needed. And that's why he did it.
Yeah,
And he
yeah,
obviously felt that he needed it. And maybe Pickens whether he plays against Philly or whether he doesn't, might help out a little bit.
Easily, you could think that the team would say, "Oh, we want nothing to do with you. You know," because the way some Steelers fans think about Pickens is like, you're a cancer. You're a horrible, but you have a horrible attitude. And I think that was Fryermuth's way of saying, "No, we got your back, man. We got your back." It's like, yeah, he's
Yeah.
like when Fryermuth says like, "Well, somebody had to get fined." So,
Right. Right. Because it's what I think your first time is $7,800. I don't know if you get a fine every time you do it. Maybe you do,
you
but
know, Muth can he can handle it. He could pay for it.
yeah.
He could also pay for his girlfriend making food that doesn't make our running backs ill. But
Right.
um
That was so
another
cool.
thing I heard is they were asking like the other wide receivers like so it's like, well, did Pickens, what did he do during the game? It's like Pickens was helping us out. He was trying to tell us, he was trying to give us pointers and stuff. Pickens could have, and I heard he was actually talking to Tomlin and like kind of joking around and stuff during the game. Pickens could have easily, if he was suspended, as some people said, he could have pouted. He could have been quiet. He could have been, just he could have Kenny Picketed the situation. No, he was there helpful. He was there for his
Right.
teammates.
Yeah, he could have Deontay Johnsoned it or
Uh-huh.
whatever too, right? So yeah, no, yeah, no, good for him. Yeah, Freiermuth can obviously pay for it, or you can call Juan Soto, who can really pay for it.
Oh my God.
The tweet of the day I saw today, which I know we're on a Steelers podcast, but I thought it was so funny because what did the Mets give him? 754 million.
765 million for 15 years.
Right. And they said, well, he turned down the Pirates offer, which is 15 million for 758 years or something. I was like, I'm sure Nutty was like, that sounds good.
He makes $34 a second and
Yep.
$2,020 a minute.
Yes.
So we've been doing this for an hour. He's made what, 100, I don't even, 100,
More than, yeah.
$120,000.
I mean, you pay me well, Joe, but not that much. So,
Yeah, it was. Oh my God.
uh, I I think it's kind of cool that the Yankees lost the guy, but at the same time, it's like you look at that and you're like, we're
It's
really
not even
paying
the
a guy
same.
that much to play
Like the
baseball.
Yankees and the Mets and the Dodgers and the Pirates
It's
don't even
not
play
the
the
same.
same game. It's not even.
No.
But the funny thing is, when the Mets play the Pirates, like they could still beat them. They,
Yeah. Yeah.
Paul Skeens
No.
will strike him out. Paul Skeens will be his teammate in a couple of years, but this year he might strike him out.
It'll be interesting because I was talking to a friend of ours. We went out to the Cubs. I went to Wrigley Field this year. Pirates fans travel to Wrigley pretty well, and he was asking, "Well, what about PNC?" I'm like, "Well, Mets fans, Cubs and Mets fans, Cardinals probably the three biggest, but the Mets fans are always at PNC when they play the Mets. The Mets fans show up pretty good.
One
It's
of the
pretty good showing.
coolest things is when it's a weekend series,
Yeah,
and if it's Phillies, um, Mets, Cleveland, maybe Cardinals, but any of those nearby cities, they basically come to Pittsburgh and make a weekend of it, and I love it. I mean, it's not that cool when if you're a Pirates fan and 60% of the fans are Phillies fans and they're but still, but it's so cool to see. I love when people from out of town come to Pittsburgh, and because I think Pittsburgh is such a wonderful city, and they make a
right.
weekend of coming here, and you could easily make a weekend of just being in Pittsburgh and do that
Mhm.
around the games and stuff like that. So that's really
Yeah,
cool to see.
yeah, it is. It definitely is. So we have a great city, and yeah.
Man,
Hopefully, we go to the city of brotherly love and beat up our brother a little bit.
I love that. I love that. Just please no Kenny Pickett. That's all. Please, Lord, no Kenny Pickett.
No,
That's all.
right. Yeah.
All right. Hey, I'll see you, man.
Joe, thanks as always. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.